Hello and welcome to HBM's Crypto-Corner for Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022. We have a few things to talk about, so let's get started. First of all, a Pennsylvania mystery creature has been identified. Looks pretty emaciated. The mystery surrounding a curious creature that stumped wildlife experts when it was captured in Pennsylvania last month has been solved. The strange saga began last month when Christina Ife spotted a weird animal lingering around outside her residence in the community of Fairfield Township. Feeling sorry for the seemingly distressed creature, the kind-hearted homeowner brought the odd-looking interloper into her basement and phoned an animal rescue organization to take possession of her quote-unquote guest. It was then that things got weird as workers from the group were left scratching their heads wondering if the creature was a dog or a coyote. The puzzling nature of the peculiar beast sparked headlines around the world as various theories were offered for what the rescued animal might have been, including some imaginative individuals who suggested that it could be a chupacabra. Although the group took samples of the creature and sent them off for testing in hopes of solving the mystery, the situation soon took an unexpected turn when the enigmatic animal somehow managed to escape their care. Fortunately, fears that there may be a blood-sucking supernatural creature roaming Fairfield Township can be put to rest as rescue workers reportedly received the DNA test results this week and learned that the animal was in fact a coyote. Where it might be now, however, remains a mystery. And it seems like there have been quite a few of misidentifications of common animals, turning them into chupacabras. I think it's happened over in Texas. It's happened in other places as well, where there have been mangy dogs. And this looks pretty mangy to me. It's a mangy coyote. That's what it is. It's a mangy coyote. So all those reports of supposed chupacabras may be just mangy coyotes and mangy dogs, and mangy wolves as well. Paranormal creatures or unidentified apes. The Bigfoot beasts definitely live. By Nick Redfern. Those of you who follow my investigations and writings on the Bigfoot phenomenon will know that I firmly believe that they are paranormal in nature, also supernatural, maybe even bordering on the world of the occult perhaps. I have pointed out stories of the creatures vanishing, as in becoming invisible. On other occasions, the beasts have spoken to the things in a mind-to-mind way, and there are the claims that the Bigfoot can destabilize us by using sound waves. Put all of this together and you'll find that we're talking about a creature that is far away from being just an ape. However, if I was to avoid and ignore the weirder side of Bigfoot, I would say that the probability is that the creatures are Gigantopithecus blacki. It was a massive ape that lived in the distant past, and which some Bigfoot researchers are convinced may explain sightings of large anomalous apes in some of the wilder, desolate, and forested areas of our planet today. There is just one problem with this particular theory. Mainstream science, biology, and zoology all assure us that Gigantopithecus became extinct thousands of years ago. Just maybe, however, it didn't. In terms of what is known about Gigantopithecus, we have to travel back in time to a relatively recent period, the 1930s. The immense beast has the thorny problem of nothing less than male impotence to thank for its discovery. For years, Chinese herbalists and doctors, some accredited and some not, have utilized fossilized teeth to create cocktails that, so they claim, can cure the embarrassing ailment of being unable to get it up. Since the Chinese landscape is rich in fossilized bones, people have made significant profits from selling such items to apothecaries all across China. It turns out that in It says 1936. It was actually 1935. It turns out that in 1935, a German man named Ralph von Koenigswald came across a huge fossilized tooth, specifically a molar, in a Hong Kong apothecary. It was highly fortuitous that von Koenigswald was the man that made the discovery, since he was a paleontologist and instantly recognized the significance of what had fallen into his lap. Not only was the molar giant-sized, von Koenigswald was able to determine that it came from a primate, and a large one, a very large one. In the immediate years that followed, von Koenigswald found further such examples and coined the term Gigantopithecus blacki, the former word standing for gigantic ape, and the latter a reference to a deceased friend, Davison Black. Von Koenigswald was temporarily and disastrously interrupted at the height of the Second World War when he became a prisoner of war of the Japanese. Nevertheless, he was not deterred, and when the hostilities were over, he continued his quest to understand the true nature and life of Gigantopithecus, as did several other people. One of them was an anatomist named Franz Weidenreich. In his 1946 book, Apes, Giants, and Man, Weidenreich made the controversial assertion that Gigantopithecus may have been far more human-like than ape-like. Chinese scientists also got hot on the trail of Gigantopithecus during this same time frame. Then in 1956, a massive jawbone of the huge ape was unearthed in a cave in Lusheng, China. The result was that, in a relatively short time, a great deal was learned about this previously unheard of hairy giant. Perhaps most amazing and impressive of all were Gigantopithecus' statistics. Estimates suggested that the height for an adult male would have been around 10 feet, while it might have tipped the scales at 1,200 pounds in weight. As for when Gigantopithecus is believed to have become extinct, Russell Shahan suggests around 200,000 years ago, but after having lived for roughly 6 million years. Of course, one could make an extremely valid argument that since people are still claiming to see giant apes in the very areas where we know Gigantopithecus roamed, such as Tibet, Vietnam, China, and India, this is evidence that the mighty hairy giant is still amongst us, but now known by his far more famous name of Bigfoot. There is, however, one problem. Due to its massive size, there is a general consensus among primatologists that Gigantopithecus walked on its knuckles, in very much the same way that today's baboons move around. Bigfoot, the Yeti, and the rest of the monstrous pack are almost exclusively described as standing and walking in an upright fashion. Plus, many of the cryptid apes of our world are described as tall. We're generally talking about creatures of 7 to 8 feet in height. Encounters with man-beasts in excess of 10 feet in height are far fewer in number. On top of that, there are even suggestions that Gigantopithecus may have reached and possibly even surpassed a height of 13 feet. This is far in excess of what is generally reported in Bigfoot. Admittedly, however, there are reports from Tibet of a particular type of Yeti referred to as the Nyalmo, which incredibly is reputed to reach stratospheric heights of 20 feet. Is it possible that Gigantopithecus adapted over millions of years to the extent that the original huge knuckle walker became a generally smaller, upright beast, one popularly and famously known as Bigfoot? Perhaps, given the sheer number of sightings of anomalous apes in the precise areas where the immense creature lived, we should give some deep consideration to this particular theory. Well, Grover Krantz, based on the way the jawbone spread out in the back, theorized that the reason that it was so spread out the way it was is that Gigantopithecus did walk upright and not on all fours. That the neck was in the way and that it sat on top of the body rather than hunched forward or lurched forward. that it was presumably 7 to 8 foot tall and completely covered in hair, weighing about 800 pounds or so. And Grover Krantz said this is the exact description of the living Sasquatch. Personally, I don't know. The Gigantopithecus theory sounds pretty good, but who knows? We don't know all the answers. We don't have all the answers when it comes to Sasquatch. Nick Redfern seems to believe that they're more paranormal than anything else. Could he be right? We don't know, but there's a possibility. Watch, lake monster filmed in Taiwan. Let's take a look at the footage.
好，主播画面上可以看到一条大鱼游在湖面上，有民众看到这只鱼现身，就把这影片给拍下来。虽然这片长只有短短的4秒钟，但是目击的民众都被这潭中出现的巨鱼吓了一大跳。而这条鱼就出现在日月潭，有民众在这里游玩的时候拍下了这条巨鱼，他们目测它的身长大概是有250公分以上，真的让人非常惊喜。而据了解呢，这段影片是一名担任船长的赖先生所拍摄的。他说他当时载着游客前往日月潭月潭一带水域要进行立桨水上活动的时候，就有游客问他日月潭有没有水怪，他还没有回答，就看到这条巨鱼从水底缓缓的游出潭面，就马上拿起手机拍摄，但这条巨鱼一下子就潜入潭底消失无踪，也让游客表示简直就是水怪级的巨鱼。不过呢，这条2公尺大的巨鱼到底是什么品种，还有待进一步向农委会及特有生物研究保育中心等相关学术单位咨询。以上是我们掌握的最新消息，时间先交给棚内。
掌握全球情势、国际新闻，全新选择 YT 频道 TVBS 国际 Plus 扩大视野，欢迎订阅并开启小铃铛。
A paddleboard instructor in Taiwan captured some rather remarkable footage of a sizable quote-unquote mystery creature that suddenly appeared near him in the water. According to a local media report, the wild encounter occurred earlier this month at a location known as Sun Moon Lake, as Lai Yongli was teaching a pair of tourists. During the lesson, he noticed that something seemingly out of the ordinary had emerged from the depths of the water and was lurking near the surface. Intrigued by the puzzling sight, Yang Li paddled over to it and was left astounded by what he saw. Captured on video by the man, the oddity in question was a monstrous fish measuring around 6.5 feet long. Yang Li deduced the length of the creature by observing that it was more than double the size of his 3-foot-long paddleboard. Thanks to the miracle of modern technology, the instructor was able to capture some fantastic footage of the wondrous sight. The video, which puts the average Nessie sighting to shame by virtue of just how close the man was able to get to the creature before it swam away, shows a long fish sporting what appear to be white fins. An instructor at the lake for quite some time, Yang Li marveled that he had never seen such a creature at the site before and promptly posted the footage to social media. Not unlike here in America, the video quickly went viral and was covered by several national news outlets in China. As for what the monster could have been, the clarity of Yang Li's footage allowed for the mystery to be solved fairly quickly, as experts were able to identify the creature as most likely being a speckled longfin eel. Interesting, yes. But most likely a more mundane creature. It's not something unidentified, not something unusual or unknown. If experts are identifying it as a known species, then it would seem to me that it wouldn't be an unknown species. Still, it is quite fascinating, you have to say that much. Finally, the Bigfoot-type Minnesota Iceman, perfect for a Hollywood monster production? Yes. Another article by Nick Redfern. Just a few days ago, I was asked an interesting question. It went something like this. Which cryptozoological story do you think could be turned into a great movie? Actually, that's not a problem for me. Not at all, in fact. One particular case really stands out. This one involves the FBI, the Vietnam War, the alleged dead body of a Bigfoot-like creature, a famous actor, and way more. With that said, let's get to the story, one that is primed for Hollywood, in my view at least. Over the years, various people within the field of cryptozoology have made controversial claims that they have or have had in their possession nothing less than the remains of a dead Bigfoot. Thus far, absolutely none of the claims has proved to be genuine. There is, however, one case in particular that many researchers of the Bigfoot phenomenon suspect may be utterly genuine. It's the strange saga of what is called the Minnesota Iceman. Frank Hansen was a man who gained deep notoriety when, in the mid-1960s, he maintained that he had acquired the deceased remains of an unusual creature, one that was part human and part ape. There were problems from the start, not the least of which was from whom precisely Hansen had acquired the body of the beast. The initial story was that the well-preserved corpse was found, floating in a block of ice no less, in the ocean waters off of Siberia. Reportedly, it was seen bobbing up and down in the freezing water by the crew of a boat in the area, who wasted no time hauling it aboard. That's all well and good, and maybe it's exactly what happened. On the other hand, maybe it's not what happened, in the slightest. A second story links the body of the Iceman to Hong Kong rather than the waters of Siberia. It's a story that maintains the corpse was found in the Hong Kong deep freeze and secretly dispatched to the United States. A further theory that the creature was shot by U.S. troops at the height of the Vietnam War continues to circulate. Suspicions that the beast was actually slain in Bemidji, Minnesota by a hunter, Helen Westring, or was the special effects-based work of one Howard Ball, who was employed by the Walt Disney Corporation, also did the rounds for a while. Even the FBI got in on the act, seeking to determine if the body was actually human. Homo sapiens or something else entirely, maybe even a relic Neanderthal. Potential murderer? Well, maybe. Regardless of the origin of the Minnesota Iceman, the word was that the body finally made its winding way to a still unknown figure in California, one with a sizable amount of money to allow them to purchase the potentially priceless remains. Rumors suggested that the anonymous buyer was none other than the actor James Stewart of It's a Wonderful Life fame, who certainly was deeply fascinated by the controversy of the Yeti. True or not, the unknown individual did a deal with Hansen to have the latter exhibit at a number of state fairs all across the United States and Canada too. When Hansen received the body, however, he realized that this was no monster. Although covered in hair and savage-looking, it had distinct human qualities too. Not surprisingly, the cryptozoological community eventually heard of the story and wasted no time in trying to figure out what was going on, and what exactly Hansen was displaying for his amazed audiences. Amongst those who had the opportunity to check out the Minnesota Iceman were two highly regarded cryptozoologists, Bernard Hovelmans and Ivan T. Sanderson. Fortunately, the pair had the opportunity to do so, not in the hectic and crowded atmosphere of a state fair, but in Hansen's very own residence. Both men were sure that what they were looking at had once lived. Even through the ice, the smell of stomach-churning, rotting meat permeated. The body did not appear to be a dummy or some form of special effect. Hovelmans and Sanderson were, to say the least, excited. Excitement changed to puzzlement and frustration when the body soon thereafter disappeared, back to the unidentified individual that had placed it in the hands of Frank Hansen in the first place. That wasn't the end of the story, however. According to Hansen, after the body was returned to its owner, He was provided with a lifelike mannequin of the real Iceman. It was a mannequin that Hansen happily toured with for decades. And the controversial What's It has spent time at the Austin, Texas-based Museum of the Weird. If all of the above isn't worthy of a big bucks movie, I don't know what is. And that's the Museum of the Weird, where the Sideshow Gaff version of the Minnesota Iceman is residing. So, where is the Minnesota Iceman? And was it the real deal? Was it the dead body of a Sasquatch type creature? I mean, what was it? Was it a hoax? We don't know. All we have is the rubber model. We don't have the actual Minnesota Iceman. If we did, if we knew where it was, and knew the real story of its origin, not what Hansen made up, possibly, then we would get answers on this question, on this mystery. But as of now, we don't know anything about the Minnesota Iceman other than what we've heard and read about. I would highly recommend reading a book called Neanderthal. I think it's called Neanderthal, The Strange Story of the Minnesota Iceman. It's the book by Bernard Heuvelmans and Boris Porjnev, which was translated into English a few years ago and is available on Amazon. But it's interesting. It's a fascinating mystery. And that's going to do it for this week. I want to thank you very much for tuning in. You guys are the heart of the show. I always say that, but I always mean it. And I'll continue to do this as long as you guys want me to. And hey, until next week, y'all be good or be good at it. This is May-HBM's Crypto Corner.